Welcome everyone, it's Chris Petri. Thanks so much again for coming by for another fantastic video here. I'm so glad to be here, so glad to be on YouTube, and thanks so much for coming by and watching and painting along with us all here. We're just going to be creating a really fun cafe scene here with some figures at a table with some really interesting colors, just lots of fun. We did some changes within the painting as we went, so you can kind of see how when I work, I usually, if I have some things I like to change, I just do them as I go. So I talk about that as we go through the video, so that'll be kind of like a fun thing we can do. You'll see me change a few things as I go, and this is the finished painting. If you want, you can work from this, or you can also at the end of the video, you'll see the finished painting as well there. I added just a few things here to change a few things. I added a little more leaves to the trees on the sides here. I did a little more additions to the face on this figure here in the blue. And other than that, though, I think it's pretty much the same way we left off at the end of the video when we were finally complete with the painting. So I hope you'll have fun with this. Again, add to it, subtract to it, change it around. Maybe this is a fun time to kind of practice different changes as you go in a painting, if you want to maybe make it more exciting or make a diversion within your painting to make certain sections a little more exciting, so that it takes away from other parts of the painting that maybe you thought you might have had an issue with. So this is a real fun painting overall. Lots to learn here, and again, thanks so much for coming by, and we'll start the video in just a second. Okay, let's get back started again now. We did just see the finished painting, and I think you'll agree with me. Welcome everybody. I think you're going to back here. We're just getting started up again. We saw the finished painting just a second ago. So I think everyone will agree with me here that this is a very doable painting. It's a really nice cafe type scene, and we're just going to really take our time. The thing that is really here, the most important thing is really to get started correctly. We just need to do a couple hash marks around the outside of our paper, which is, you know, we have this taped off, and this is approximately a 7" by 7" square paper that we're using. This is Fabriano rough paper. It's extra white rough Artistico Fabriano paper. I started just doing a couple little pencil lines here and there, and some sketch marks and hash marks around the. I always tape around the perimeter of my my watercolor paper before I start, so this way I can make notes on it and start building from there. So if we get some hash marks, sometimes you don't need a lot of hash marks, maybe only 2 or 3, maybe around your border. But sometimes if you have more of a scene like this, where there's a few more, you know, lines and details that you're going to want to pick up throughout this. Subject matter, this nice little quaint cafe here, and we'll put some figures in here too, so we're going to make it even more exciting. We're going to add in some figures. So what I'm thinking is let us get some of those hash marks so that we just kind of can get the spacing between like the floor area or the ground level, and then maybe the awning, and then maybe the top of the awning, and then above that is okay. And then we're going to make our own little cafe sign. There was a name of a cafe here. I just wanted to cross that out and put up my own little scribble here, cafe. And we'll do a little just cafe. We'll put cafe, you know, on there up top for a little extra interesting signage on top of our area here that we have. And we'll add in a figure or 2. Maybe we'll put 2 figures here having some lunch or coffee. And I think it's pretty straightforward. So you'll see how I'm going to do this and work along with me here. Maybe you want to watch the video full through one time and then go back and then just stop and, you know, pause and go on your video as we go, so you can kind of work at your own leisure and your own pace. So basically the first thing I notice here is, you know, there's a lot of horizontal lines here that run through this. So that's sort of the predominant lines going through the scene, horizontal lines. And then there's some verticals too. We can minimize some of those verticals if we want. and then just keep it mostly horizontal lines, which will kind of look pleasant, just mostly horizontal lines going across our scene. And of course we'll need to get some vertical lines here, so we have a couple verticals here, the doorway, the window. Maybe we can kind of blend these out into the background over here so that we're not seeing too many verticals. Let's keep it more horizontal. But I think we'll have a fun time with this, and this is not extremely time consuming. This type of a painting we can do in like 45 minutes to an hour if we take our time. If you wanted to rush through this and do it more quicker, that's fine too. Some people like to work faster and do things more quickly and get more of an abstract kind of painting look, but this will be fun. We'll minimize some details. We're not going to get every single detail in this. Of course, we try to minimize details sometimes when we're doing our watercolors. And if you've been following me for a while, you kind of know I like to sort of minimize details. I'm not trying to get every single detail, like the glasses and, cutlery on the tables, or, maybe I'm not going to do every single thing I see here. I'm, going to try to just get the basics, of the scene. And you can always add in details. That's the thing, or at least you can add in some more details when you're kind of finishing up your painting. So let's get started here. So I'm just looking at this and saying, all right, well, this is about a third of the way. Down from the top is the bottom of the canopy. So I take my paper and I say about a third of the way down. Maybe I'll go even further and I'll say a little bit past a third is my canopy. So I'll make a mark over here on my paper, canopy, and I'll make a little wavy line there just to know that that's the line I'm talking about, the canopy where those curved lines on the border of the canopy are. So that's actually the very, very bottom of the canopy. So I make sure I kind of note that over here in my tape over here on the side. And then over here the top of the canopy. So we just go up about, not quite halfway. We're going to make this painting a little taller, more headroom up here. So I'm adjusting this a little bit, you can kind of see. But this will be the top of the canopy here. So we'll have that there. And then what else did we have here? And then we said here was going to be the bottom of the door, the door saddle. So this is the bottom of the door saddle here. And that's about a little past a third up from this line here. So if we kind of start to look at things as divisions of space, so you're working on your divisions of space, and we said, well, our canopy's about a third of the way down from the top. That's good there. And then now the bottom of the doorway here is about a third of the way up. So that's about good. So we make a line there a third of the way. And then we're starting to really get some good lines down here, some good horizontal waypoints. And then we can also say, all right, well, now that we have our bottom of our door here, we can also do that little small step up area, which is about here. So we make a line across there. That's where the step up area is. It's like a small curb. This is the bottom of the curb. So there's a step up here onto like kind of like a curb or a step, and then up onto a sidewalk kind of feel. And then that flows right into the space. So that looks good there. And then from there we just had a little angular line here where we see this over here, and we put our planter here. So we just have a square planter with a little bit of a flare out on an angle, and a little bit of a rim on the top there. And then we have another here, so let's do that. So you can kind of see I'm not getting too fancy, We got one of these planters here. It's a wood box planter. And we'll put the tree in a little while. Let's kind of keep working on our lines here. So this goes across here. So this again is the wall where the door is, the doorway. So now we're looking good. You can put in this small bit of dark, looks like a mat, maybe like a doormat type of thing here in front of the doorway. You can put that in if you want. You don't have to. We can leave it more freer looking, but that's fine. And we have a shadow here, so there's some shadowing happening. The shadow's about halfway on the doorway, and it goes this way, and then it sort of trails off this way. And so let's keep working this. We said this is the canopy, so this is a good time to, maybe we could get our canopy started over here. So I'm just going to contour draw basically. I'm just going to go across here. And that looks a little bit like it's tipping. So if you find you need to use a ruler, maybe I'll use a ruler here just to keep this a little more straight here. So let me take my ruler. Maybe I'll use my half ruler here. And I'll just use my half ruler here and get a straighter line across here, and then we'll go about almost all the way to the edge, but not quite there. And then we'll put another small line here just to kind of give us that little, it looks like a bar. There's some sort of bar here on this canopy, so that must be where the support is for the canopy itself. That gets rolled up and moved up in the air to retractable. This is a retractable awning here. So this canopy and awning is a retractable one that kind of rolls up into the top of this section up here. So we're just taking some notes in our mind, mental notes here. And that's about where that starts there. And then there's the and again, you don't have to do as much detail. You can leave it like that and not do every line, but we said we're really enjoying the horizontal lines, all the horizontal lines running across this scene like this. So we will put in that detail. Let's put in that. There's an awning here, and we're going to notice there's another trim. There's like a trim up here, like a nice dark trim. And this one, since we have this line with the ruler, we can just draw this one in because we already have a straight line to reference our straight line here. But if you feel comfortable, use the ruler. Take the ruler, just make your second line up here if you need to. That's fine. If you can freehand it, that's good too. It's up to you. And we have that. And then we'll do another line like this, just to let us know we're going to paint that in a little thicker with a dark line there when we paint. And up here, we're going to do a cafe sign. So maybe we'll make the cafe sign the middle third. So if we break down our space up here into thirds, we might say this is a third, this is a third, and this is a third. This is the middle third. Then we can just drop that down like that, just so we know. And then maybe we can just do a nice little script, cafe. Like that. And again, we'll do that real loosely and fun when we do our painting, just so we have it there. And we do have a vertical here. So let's put in this vertical over here. This is the edge of the wall. There's another commercial space next to this one. So maybe there's a restaurant next door or a bakery or something like that. So we'll just get a couple lines here that describe this area here of a cafe in the middle of a street. Like in the middle of the block, we have this one cafe sitting in between other businesses and so forth. So we just have that in there. Does that make sense? So we kind of have our picture here, and we're just kind of using this and saying, we see there is another business over here. Maybe, like I said, it could be a restaurant or a bakery or something like that. And then the same thing over here. There's another commercial space over here on the right, but we're just focused in on our cafe. And then we wanted to get in the curved the curved lines like that for the bottom of this canopy. That looks fine. I think in this picture it's a little larger, a little wider, but I think we're okay. That looks all right. And if you have a problem, you say, let's say you do draw this in and then you think it's not large enough, you can just lightly erase. Leave some of the lines that you had here so that you can kind of see where you have to go a little further. And I'll just go a little further on that, and then I'll just sort of do the same thing. And I just do that curved line up and down across better. And I notice the doorway is right at the top of this. So we'll carry our door line right up here. So before we started, I did have this line in here where the doorway started here and here, and it was about a third of the way. So if you can see this here, our line's up here. This was the thirds, 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. So the center of the door basically is a third of the way over. So I'm just kind of using that as a guide that my door is centered on the third line going this way, 1/3 across from the left. So from the left over 1/3 of the way across the painting, that's the center of the door. And then I just carry those lines up like that. That looks good. Then the door here is like so. Just a little bit of the door is just a tiny bit showing here like so. We can leave that just very loose, just the shape of that door here going in. And then right next to that, we have some trim that goes down about a third of the way up from the bottom is the bottom of the window. So you can see I'm always kind of trying to use thirds, halves. Here is so between here, the bottom of the door, and the canopy, a third of the way up is the bottom window. So we just make a note there and say, okay, now let's go across. Now this window is pretty wide. Maybe I don't have it perfect. When I drew this, everything, I might be a little bit off, and you can not have to worry if it's perfect. It's just, you know, it's our, you know, does that make sense? This is our painting. This is your painting. You're the artist. You can have things, you know, a little bit off here and there. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then here we have the window has a sash across there, so we'll put that there. And then we're going to start working in our figures over here probably, so we're not going to get too fussy with things, but I think this looks pretty good. So I think we're really, things are coming together. Let's take a little break now. We've done a lot of drawing so far, so I always say, you know, when you're drawing, you know, try to take a few breaks between the time you start and the time you're finishing up your drawing. So maybe you can do your drawing in two goes. So maybe your first go, you're getting in maybe your hash marks and starting things a little bit, getting some lines in there. Maybe your second go on your pencil sketching and drawing, you're kind of laying things out, getting your main subject matter in there, and then maybe even a break, and then a third go with your drawing to finish up anything you might need to prep for your painting. And then you start thinking about your painting a little more as you're finishing up your last third go on your drawing. And I think that's good. Or you might do it in two goes, your drawing, pencil drawing, but it's up to you. And I always say too, I hope you'll join along with us every week. If you feel free to subscribe, the subscribe button's right down there on the right hand side. So if you subscribe, you'll have these interesting videos every week. You'll be alerted when they come out. You can watch them full through. You'll learn a lot of interesting new information as you go, and then you can join along with this too and take your time going through the video, maybe a second time where you can stop and go and pause your video as you go and work through the painting that you like, that you'd like to do. Because not everyone's going to want to paint this cafe scene. Some of you like flowers and boats, and you're not really interested in a cafe scene. So I understand that totally. So don't worry. But if you do watch each episode full through, you're going to learn a lot of stuff about all the fundamentals that we do here in watercolor and drawing, painting, laying out your artwork, different design principles, all these different things you're going to learn. And the more you hear them, the more they're just going to stick with you and click with you. And then you'll be using them in your artwork, and your artwork will be getting better. And that's the main thing. I want to see your paintings getting better and better. And I know they will. You can do this. Let's come back. We'll finish up our drawing, and then we'll start our painting. So we'll be back in just a second. Okay, we're moving right along here. We're just starting back up. We took a break. We did most of our drawing here, our pencil drawing. So we have pretty much everything hashed out with our hash marks, and we kind of just went over, how we got our parallel lines here across, our horizontal lines. We have quite a number of those, and it looks very pleasing when you kind of have a dominant line going through your painting. So that dominant line is a horizontal line going across, and you have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the bottom, if we can consider that too, 10, and maybe the top to 11. So about a dozen lines here, all running horizontal. That looks really pleasing. Has kind of a relaxing type feel for the painting. Horizontal lines are more of a relaxing type mark on the paper. So we will continue on here. So we did say we wanted to add some figures, and we'll do some tables. And I think once we get these tables and figures in, and maybe we'll just add some of the tree bushes here in these planters, some of these plantings here, we should be pretty good. So let's start out here. Maybe we'll go with one table, and then we can use this as our guide to where we want to have our tables. Let's just say we're going to make one round table. Maybe we'll make it a little larger. So we'll make a larger round table here, and then we'll have some two-seated figures. And I think we'll maybe leave out the stools here. We'll just have the two figures and then the little bench seat behind here. So let's take a look, and we can kind of gauge this. So the top of the tables here are halfway between the first step here and the top and the bottom of the window. So from here to here, from this point here, the tables are about halfway. So that's about halfway between. So let's make a table. The table width is not too wide. It's an oval table. So maybe we'll do the oval table like so. And then we're going to take a look and say, okay, how far do the legs from the bottom of the table? So we did an oval here, a pretty thin oval. Then we take our legs and we say, how far do those go down? So we take those legs down about halfway between the bottom of this step and the picture frame, our frame of our picture here, approximately. Maybe it's going to be a little less, but let's go with that first and see how that looks. So halfway up, between here and here, between this and this point, the bottom of the picture frame, and the bottom of this step here is the bottom of the table, the legs of the table, and that looks pretty good. Let's try that. And then we'll just kind of make these like so. They're kind of smooth curves like that. That looks pretty good. And then maybe another one here. Just so we have them there. We're going to do a lot of painting, and always remember, when you're painting, you can add a lot of detail and kind of sculpt your picture and your painting as you go, so you don't have to work everything out on your drawing. Does that make sense? So a lot of times once you get in there and you start painting, you're going to notice that you'll be able to paint in some things. You can paint over some things you might not like if you have a few pencil lines and you're thinking, I want to kind of paint over those. I don't think I need as many lines in something. That's fine. So you can kind of, you know, work that out as you paint. But we will go with pretty much the legs of the table like this, and we'll put them in. And make a couple little, maybe some horizontal lines here too. Then we're going to have a bench seat behind here. Maybe we'll just make the figures actually. So let's not get too, I'm not going to get too worried about things here. I'm just going to sort of make a line where I think the seat of the figures is going to be, and then we can just kind of put in some lines in here for the chairs. We don't have to get involved in drawing in the chairs. I don't think that's really good to do that because there's a lot of lines already with our table. Does that make sense? If you have a lot of lines already with your table doing the legs of your cafe table here, it would kind of make sense to keep just some minimal lines behind this where you think the chairs are, just so you have a feel for where you're going to have your figures sitting. But you're not going to want to keep drawing in, you know, excessive pencil lines into this section over here, because we're going to make this, you know, a loose painting, and we're not going to get too carried away with too many pencil lines. So I just wanted to get in where the bottom of the chairs are going to be, approximately there. And then here we're going to just we're going to put our figures here. So I'm going to have one figure here, like so. And I'm just going to do a very loose, some very loose figures here. They're having some, I'm just making shoulders, head and shoulders, very loose. And I don't think we have to get more detailed than that. Just some shoulders and a head here, and then a head here and shoulders. And we have some, maybe our figures are having some coffee, so maybe we'll have our arms down here on the table, some cups, maybe just a few cups, indications. Again, we're going to do this very loose, this painting. We're not going to get too involved with immense details. So we just have maybe two arms with two coffee cups there, like so. And they're just having a nice time, a wonderful time, having a coffee here and chatting and enjoying the day. And, you know, we might put in maybe we'll put in a chair, like so. And then over here too, we'll have a chair there. Just the back of the chair, maybe. Just a little line there. And the rest we don't have to worry about. So if we get a few lines, a chair, the backs of the chair here and over here, and our figures in, that looks fine. We'll see how it turns out. I think you'll find that less is more. Less is more here. You don't want to go with a lot of details. Keep it very loose. You'll paint in most of your ideas as you paint with your paint. So that's good. So I think we have everything here we need. Let's put in these trees here. There's some gorgeous pine, looks like pine trees here, small pine trees, and they're kind of, we'll just put in some indications of some branches, like so. And then the same thing over here. We're going to have some more pine trees over here. Maybe this one is a little bit higher up. And we'll keep those very loose too as well. We're just going to get a few little small indications of some branches, just so we know when we're going in to paint this, we can splash and create our trees and know that we have to get in a few branches. Does that make sense? So when you kind of lightly sketch in some lines, you're doing it to just remind yourself as you're painting what you're going to be actually doing. So it's kind of like a map. Your pencil drawing's a map of, once you start painting, what you're going to be doing there, and then you don't have to do too much thinking. beyond that, because you already know you worked it out before you started your painting. Does that make sense? That's a great tip. That's a little tidbit. That's a tidbit of information that I think is absolutely great. And if you use that, you will absolutely benefit from it. If you can get in some penciled in ideas on your painting before, as many as you can, but without overdoing it. Obviously, we don't want to draw in every pencil line that we see when we're doing a drawing. But if you pretty much get in the most of the ideas with your even light, super light pencil lines, that's one less thing you have to worry about when you're painting. Then when you're painting, you can concentrate on mixing your colors, your washes, watching all your paint dry as it goes, and then adding in subsequent washes after that. But the main thing is you already have most of the ideas that you need already, between the hash marks and your drawing. You have everything you need. Once you start painting, you won't need to really do any more sketching or do much more thinking on things. You'll just be more or less painting in your scene, and then kind of being reserved and not overworking it, and you leave it underfinished, and then you can always go back in a day later and add in a few more details. But you'll see, we're going to start painting in just a second. We'll take another break since we did a lot of pencil drawing here, and we'll come right back in just a few seconds and we'll start painting. Hey, welcome back everybody. Thanks so much for coming by again, and we're just getting back started again. We're going to start our painting in just a second or two. And again, I just want to say I appreciate everybody coming by, the great comments in the comments section, all the encouragement. It keeps me stoked, keeps me excited about painting here on YouTube, and I really appreciate it. And let's get started now. We did our pencil drawing, and again, we kind of talked about how you want to have mostly everything you need in your pencil drawing to help you guide your painting as you go, but you don't want too many lines in there. And you don't want to perhaps be erasing a lot, and kind of take your time. You get in your hash marks to kind of get the overall where your subject matter is kind of falling within your boundaries of your painting, your frame, the frame of your painting, your rectangle, your square. We're working in a 7x7 format here, and that's really all. So I'm glad you're joining back and starting up again after our break, and we'll get painting here. So I poured some fresh water into my clean water into my water pail. So I use a large collapsible water container, pour some fresh water in there. I'm going to take this, put this across from me, and then I'm going to have my palette. Nice, fresh, moist, juicy paint here. I always say this on my channel. If you're new here and you haven't been following me too long, or you're just for the first time you're coming here, I always say please subscribe. You'll get lots of great videos. Every week we're creating new videos, all different kinds of subject matter: seascapes, landscapes, cityscapes, cafes, flowers, figures, you name it. We do everything here watercolor. So you'll be getting a great base of knowledge here on painting watercolors and drawing and all the techniques and methods that go into that. So that's great. You'll be learning every time you watch a new video, and then you're picking up and painting and drawing the ones you like most as you go. Maybe you like everyone, or you just want to practice every one that we do, and that's great too. That's phenomenal. So as we go here, I always mention you want to have fresh, moist, juicy paint, and if you haven't thought about that too much, if you're just starting out, or if maybe you've only been painting a short amount of time, or even if you're an old pro and you're maybe used to doing it your way, I say please check out my palette videos. All you have to do is just simply type in my name into the YouTube search bar, Chris, C-H-R-A-S, space, P-E-T-R-I, Petri, my last name, and then you type in palette, P-A-L-E-T-T-E. So if you type in Chris Petri palette into YouTube, you'll see I have about 10 videos on palettes and paints, all kinds of information of how I use my palette, what colors I use, how to keep my palette fresh. I always have all kinds of techniques of how to keep your palette with fresh, moist paint, where you don't have to keep squeezing in paint every day when you go to paint. You can have this always readily accessible, your fresh paints. anytime you want to paint. You can have it always just like this, fresh and moist, juicy paint as you go. So you have to check out those palette videos I made. Please do check those out if you haven't already. I'm sure many of you have. So great, let's get started now. We're going to get in here. We're going to do the alla prima method. Now you'll always hear me say, usually we're going to practice or we're going to paint our paintings in either two methods, alla prima or glazing technique. Glazing technique simply is light, really light, super light washes, like let's say you're using a cerulean blue or French ultramarine blue and some burnt umber, some burnt sienna. So glazing technique is you're going to use a super light wash and cover the whole painting and let it dry, and then come back in and do your dark colors. So where you're going to be using straight dark colors like that over the top of your lighter wash once that dries. That's the glazing technique. We do that here. You'll see many videos I do in the glazing technique style, but this one here we're going to do the alla prima style of painting, which is more my style. I use alla prima more than I do glazing technique, and that simply is you're going to be going in first with your dark, so you're using mostly straight paint in the beginning. Straight paint, you're taking your brush, rinsing it off, drying it off on a paper towel or a small piece of sponge here like so, or your apron if you wear an apron, or some tissue, whatever it is. You want to rinse your brush off, dry, take a little bit of water off first, and then you go into your paints and you get your straight paint. And that's how you get your darks to start out with as you go. So here, let's put that right to use. The windows here, we can kind of see the windows were very dark, and I'm making that canopy like that. Lots of interesting darks. We're going to use some, we'll mix in some yellow ochre with our darks. So essentially we're going in with some darks, straight to paint almost, just a little bit of damp brush with your straight paints. You could use a square brush or a flat brush if you want to get more of a straighter lines if you want, but we can get some pretty good lines here with our round brush. And warm and cool everywhere, some blue, cerulean blue there too. We want to mix warm and cool everywhere, so we don't want to get stuck with just warm or cool colors. So we add in our warm and cools everywhere. And our windows in our photograph we're working from, the windows are very dark. And there might be a little bit of lights in the window. There's maybe some tables in there inside the cafe, a bar, maybe a countertop, whatever. So we leave a few. And a couple. I use a tissue just to blot up a little bit of paint, maybe add a little interest to that. Perfect, look at that. Then, again, let's go in. More darks, French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, burnt sienna. Let's add a little bit of Prussian blue in that too. And we'll just do a few more darks, and then let's do this too over here. And then we want to do some more yellow ochre just to get some warm and cool like that. And here, I'm not getting too fussy. Let's just make these some really good, rich darks. And again, I rinse my brush, take a little bit of water off, some more paint, and it gets a little lighter here towards the bottom, this section here. And then it's quite a bit lighter. We're starting to see more light from the outdoors shining into this cafe on the interior of the cafe. So that's why we're going to go lighter now. like that. And then we're going to do a quick, some darks here on the door. There's a door here. This is the, maybe the glass on the door. So the door is opening up into the cafe, like so. And it stops about 3/4 of the way. Maybe a little bit of cadmium red. 2, let's add some exciting colors. Let's add some reds into this too. So pretty much we have all the interesting colors we want. And again, the alla prima method, we're doing all the darks first. Do you see that? We're actually creating all the darks first as we go here. In the photograph, there are some darks over here on the left. I'm not going to put those in so much. I think I'm going to leave it more simple. Most of the interesting things we're going to paint are going to be right here. The figures at the table, the window, the door, the cafe. The trees are kind of, our trees are going to kind of be like the bookends to the painting. So we'll have some interesting trees and branches and things over here on both sides. And other than that, I think we'll keep it a simple painting. So let's keep going here. We're getting in the darks, and maybe let's go up and we'll do some of the canopy. So we'll go with some darks: burnt umber, burnt sienna, a little bit of Prussian blue, burnt sienna. And then we're just going to go across, and we're going to do our lines across. Let's do some dashed lines. Let's not keep it 100% solid all the way. Let's sort of be very careful as you go across. Then maybe you can blot up a couple spots. Then maybe use a little bit of the lighter color. Make a little bit of a lighter wash, like that. Then maybe back into some darker wash. Let's modulate our tonal values. We don't want to go with just all one straight tone and value for that. We want to break it up a little bit. Add a little bit of warmth into that too. Maybe a little bit of red. Add some red into that dark mixture. Maybe some gold, some yellow ochre, maybe some blue, maybe some cerulean blue too. Add some interesting colors there. And then we're going to make our second line across here. And again, we go with some darks. Rinse off our brush, dry off the water a little bit, get a little bit of a lighter wash there, blue. Nice light color. A little bit of gold. Again, try to be mixing your colors and getting some different looks. It might not be exactly what we're seeing in the picture, but we'd rather have it more exciting than kind of just saying, slavishly saying, oh, we're just going to paint what we see. No, we're gonna paint it more exciting. We want it to look more exciting than it looks in the photograph. And so that's why we're doing this. We're adding some more colors to what we are placing on the paper. And do you see that, how we're doing that? If we just look at the photograph, you kind of see that it's just a black or a dark, you know, it's like it's a black color. It's a very dark, like a black canopy trim that goes across. So instead we're adding some variation to it, some colors, really making it look interesting so that when someone looks at that area of the painting, they're going, ooh, look at that, different colors. And then they start looking at that, and then that line becomes an interesting part of your painting. Whereas if we just paint one color straight across, there's not really much that a person might look at the painting and just think, oh, it's a black line, you know, or whatever. So always remember that. You're the artist. You want to create more exciting in your painting whenever you can. And I'm doing the same thing here. Let's make things more exciting. So let's do some shadowing maybe. We're using yellow ochre and cerulean blue. We're going to do some shadowing under the canopy over here. So I'm going to go really slow and keep that shadow color going across like so. Then I get a little darker at the very top, like that. Maybe not everywhere, here and there. Modulation. There we go. A little bit of blue. And then we're going to go with a darker shadow under here to kind of bring out that nice curvy line. If you have a hard time with that curvy line on the awning, you can always make it a straight awning. You don't have to make it a curvy line like this. So here, yellow ochre, cerulean blue, we're going to make a little bit of a shadow, warm shadow, cool, warm and cool shadows, a mix of the two. And then soften them out. And since this is a light shadow wash here, you can just have fun with it. You don't have to worry about it too much if it's going around in different areas of your painting, down, lower into the painting, whatever, that's okay. It's a very light wash. Once it dries, you'll barely see it. But it is something that, a little bit of orange here, we want to add a little bit of orange. A couple spots of orange, just a little bit added warmth. A little bit of splashing. Let's start to bring in some texture. Texture is good, important. Put a couple splashes up top. There's a bit of a shadow over here. We could call that a mystery shadow. It sort of goes across this way. A little bit of orange on the awning too. Blot up a little bit if you think you've gone too dark or something, but a little bit of orangey, yellow ochre and orange on this awning looks good, with a little bit of the cerulean blue as well, and it kind of just makes a good texture to it, and a good, like, we're seeing a little bit of the play of light and shadow, warmth, warm shadows, cool shadows on the awning up above. We can add a little bit of darks here and there, a little bit of that cerulean blue underneath with a little bit of the other warmer tones, like that. And then kind of soften them a little bit, just to give us a little more detail on that canopy. Same thing here. There's a little more shadow inside here on this door. So let's add that in. That door's in has a lot of shadow there. So we could just add to that. There we go. And I lift up a little bit of paint there. And since this is already wet and we've just did some washes on here, let's let that dry. So we've worked a little bit already here, and we've gotten a good deal with our darks here. So we kind of did quite a few darks and cools and warms and cools. We could add in maybe this dark French ultramarine blue, Prussian blue, burnt umber, and we're just going to put that. We'll put that in there. And we soften that. Okay, now we're going to take some more of this dark, mix in a little bit of yellow ochre with some of this dark. See, all right, we have a nice warm grayish color. Let's do our it looks like a little sidewalk on top of the it's a bit of a sidewalk here. A little step area, and then we'll put that over here, same thing. And maybe we just run a couple dashes through there, maybe just a little bit. Kind of ties it together, but we're going to do the figures in a few minutes or so, but we're going to take a break now. We've done a lot of work here so far. I think we're really making a lot of progress. I think once we get the figures in the table and a couple washes on the foreground here, I think we'll be pretty much finished. So you can kind of see this is a painting where once you're getting in most of your darks, you're really going to be like 3/4 of the way finished, and then at the end of the painting you're just going to maybe do some details, but we'll do those very sparingly. So you'll kind of see that that's the key with watercolors when we're doing this type of method, a la prima painting. You're getting your darks in first, and then as you go, you take your time, you take a break or two here and there, and then you just keep adding in more of the subject matter until you're kind of, once you're toward the end of the painting, you have most of your subject matter in, then you can kind of just hold back and kind of look and say, you know what, it might be good there, and then you can come back a day or two later and add in a few more, details if you want. But if you do a little bit less, you'll tend to be happier, I think, with your paintings. So we'll see, but you'll kind of, we'll work along here and we'll see how it looks. But I think once we get our figures in and these shrubs and trees next to the cafe here on the sides, and then we get our cafe sign in up here, I think we'll be pretty much good to go. All right, so we'll be right back. And again, I thank you so much for following along here. We're having lots of fun. Let's keep going with this. This is a really doable painting. You can do this. Some darks for the door, the window, and you're pretty much a couple lines up on top here, the horizontal lines of the trim. And then we'll do our figures next, and you'll see how easy the figures are. We're going to do them very simply, very easily, not much to them. As far as, we're not going to get into a lot of details with our figures here. We're just going to have a fun time and get them in quick, and they'll look great too, you'll see. Okay, so we'll be right back. Okay, we're just coming back from a break. We're getting started again. Let's just take a quick moment here just to look at what we're doing. I'm seeing that I have a few things left to do. The figures here, the table, a little bit of shadowing on the ground here. These three wood pots with plants and some shrubs and some trees here. The cafe sign, we'll put in a nice script here, cafe, and maybe a couple of shadows or some color variation maybe on the upper section here. Other than that, I think we're pretty much finished. So let's get going here. I got some fresh water while we were taking our break, and I'm just gonna have to get one thing over here. And I'm getting my trusty apron, and we're ready to go here, and we'll get started here. So I think we'll go for the table first. Let's do that. So I'll take some burnt umber, yellow ochre, cerulean blue, and I'll just have a tissue to dry off some of the paint. So I'm just going to start to maybe a little bit of French ultramarine blue there, just for some shadowing up here. A little darker back in there. We're going to have some shadows under the table. And let's see here, some blue, burnt umber. I'm going to keep the color scheme really simple here in this painting. I'm not going to go too far out from what we started with. I might get a little more colors. So I'm going to do cadmium red for the shirt here. So I'm going with a pretty exciting looking shirt here. And some flesh tones, cadmium red, yellow ochre. And I rinse off my brush, dry off a little bit of water, go into some cerulean blue for some shadow. And again, I'm just going to keep this real simple. For the flesh tones, and some burnt umber and French ultramarine blue. For the hair, maybe this person has some darker hair. And then this person here maybe has a little bit of lighter hair. So we'll do some flesh tones first for the complexion. Maybe we'll do maybe a gold. Let's see here. Let's go with a cobalt blue. Then we'll work in some darker shadows under here. And that's when I kind of just let things mix and mingle under here. So we're not trying to create too much detail. Some darks here and there underneath, shadowing there. Then there might be some more shadowing under here like this. Underneath the table. And then underneath our figures here. A little bit of warmth in the shadows, so we'll pick up some of that yellow ochre just to get some warmth in there. Maybe some of the red too, a little bit of red in there. And again, not a lot of details for the underside of the table. That didn't come out great. Maybe that's a tablecloth, so maybe we can blot up a little bit there. Again, if you ever get if you ever have an issue where you feel something is not looking good or whatever, you can always blot up some paint and then start over, like in a sense, like I'm doing here. It could be a really like something that ruins the painting. I don't think it'll ruin the painting at this point, but it could. But I'm thinking this might be more of a tablecloth, a light colored tablecloth there. So I'm trying to rescue this area. Then I just went in aggressively and started to change things around. And but I think it's going to be all right. And I'll put a little bit of red in there too, so that it seems like it's see-through. And then I'll add the darker burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, a little bit of burnt sienna, a little bit of cerulean blue. And I'll try to just capture that line of the, like that. That might work. And then we're going to let this dry now. So I've kind of run out of options in a sense. I have to let this dry now to do any more work to it, but I think I did the right thing by kind of rescuing that a little bit. Didn't look good, all dark under there everywhere. Too many darks in there. Made it look a little bit made it look a little bit unpleasant, so now we will go with some hair here. And a little bit of and we'll put a little nose here. And again, blotting up doesn't hurt. You can go back in once it's dry, so that's what we'll do. Sometimes that's a good effect when you kind of go in, paint it, and then dry it off a little bit with the tissue. And then it gives like a softness to it, and then you can go in and do a couple hard touch-ups to it, and it looks good. So we'll let this dry now 100%. I think we could do a little bit of details here. I think we can do just a couple of eyes there, and that should be fine. And we'll do some couple hands here, just to, they're having their coffees and at the cafe, and okay, so our figures are good. We're letting this dry here. We're going to forget about that for right now. We'll go right in over here. We'll do our boxes. Does this make sense? I'm working around the painting, so I kind of did everything I could over here in the figures in the table. So now I'm going to start going in with my wood planters. So we have some wood planters here. So I'll get some color going there. A little bit of sap green and cadmium lemon yellow. Couple splashes there. Okay. Now we will do a little shadowing over here, make some darks. That's too wet to add shadows right now, so we'll just let that dry there. Let's do our cafe sign. So I'm going to try to move around the painting. Can you see that? I'm moving around the painting, trying to complete areas as I go. We'll let these dry now. The two plants here, the planter boxes, the wood planter boxes, and the bush over here, and we'll do the trees next. Let's do the cafe sign. There we go. And we'll just make it a little more interesting, maybe. Add a little variation to it. Okay, good. And what else? This is probably getting pretty good and dry, but we'll let this go till probably last before we're finished. Right when we're finishing up, I think we're going to do that area there. So I'm going to make there's a chair back here. Maybe that's too dark. And that's the other side of that chair there. And okay, so the shadows are definitely darker under here. So now I'm going back in again, knowing it could be disastrous. Once a section starts giving me problems here, I find that it continues to happen, but I'm just going to keep going. And Try to leave some lights in there somehow. That might I might be able to keep working on this. I think we can go in with some more darks here. And then maybe we can use some blue over here like that. Okay. We can also use, we'll use some white paint maybe to do a couple touch-ups, you know, highlights and touch-ups to the table, I think. So we can work on that a little more later. Let's get back over here. We'll do some shadowing under there, like so. Let's use some red here. Mix in some colors. Some green, red. And we've already been working about 15-20 minutes. I am going to keep going here. I think we can keep going. Maybe we'll do some shadowing under there. A little bit of shadowing under the window. There's a little bit of okay. Now we will get some greens, cadmium lemon yellow, lots of cadmium lemon yellow. More water. There we go. And just a couple of very bright green leaves here. Nothing too heavy. Let's keep it nice and light and not too much. The main thing is to get the consistency of the cadmium lemon yellow. And we will put in some fine branches and so forth once we and a little darker green at the bottoms here. Lighter green, greenish yellow up top. Go. I think I will erase this mystery shadow here. I don't think I'm going to do that, so I'll just erase that shadow line we had there. I'll just leave this as it is. And I'll take a little of that cadmium lemon yellow and just add it to the ground a little bit and the walls. Up here a little bit too. Just a touch of it. Makes it feel like sunny and warm. The wall up here, the canopy, Just a touch of that lemon yellow, cadmium lemon yellow. Looks good. Maybe a little bit of cadmium orange. That always also adds that nice warmth. And there's a little bit of that cool color on this area here of the step. So there's a step up here onto that sidewalk. That's a little cooler. Seems to be a little bit of a shadow there. Kind of nice to have that too. To have that shadow there, because it's sort of like that. And then once that dries, we can do a little more to that. So we're really finishing up now. I'm going to take one more break just to let some things dry. And I think that'll be pretty good as we go. Okay, let's let this dry just a few minutes. I might put that little bit of shadow over here. There's another wall over here. If we add that wall in like so, and add a little bit of warmth to it too as well, like that. That'll kind of make an interesting break for the eyes to go over to a different area. And I'll try to get a little bit of that awning. Couple of darks for the leaves. Okay, we'll come right back and finish up. All right, we're coming back to do the final details here. We had some struggles through this painting. Every painting usually will have some issues when you're working through the painting. Sometimes if I haven't painted a subject matter a lot, I sometimes get into a little bit of trouble. So here I had some issues with some shadows under this table. And you know, I tried to work around it, but I think I found a good resolution to that by adding a tablecloth on top of there, because I had too many dark shadows. Can you see that? I had too many dark shadows under the table, basically. So I eliminated, you know, tried to eliminate that by blotting out while the paint was still wet, the dark paint, and lifted that paint out, and then I had a little more of a white tablecloth look to it, which I think looks okay. Now, to take a little bit of this is like the focal point of the painting. Pretty much we have some figures sitting down having coffee at this cafe. If I can actually add some more interest to this canopy, I think I'm going to change this to like either red or green. So maybe we'll do that. We'll make this either like a Viridian green, or maybe like a nice red like this, like a cadmium red canopy like that. I think that would look good. It'll kind of add some more excitement to the painting and take some pressure off of the figures sitting here at the table, because that's, you know, that right now is sort of like the, really the main focal point, and our attention goes right there to the figures. If maybe we'll even do a striped canopy up here. Maybe that'll work. So let's try it. I think I'm going to go with maybe a red striped canopy. Try that out and see how it looks. So, well, let's do that. Let's make some stripes here. So I'll just go like this, nothing too fancy. And then I'll just sort of make them kind of on an angle as they go this way, like that. And I'll try to just evenly space them like this, and then they're going to start to angle out like that. Like that. Perfect. And that should be good. So let's try to paint the stripes in. We'll use red. So we'll get some cadmium red. Maybe a little bit of alizarin crimson too, just to give it a little bit of a change, and a little bit of cerulean blue too, just to give it a little change in value. I'll rinse my brush off again, dry it off on the tissue a little bit, and we'll go in and we'll start. So this is more fun, kind of just getting in some stripes here. Main thing is concentrating really well so that we don't paint in the wrong area and ruin the stripe effect. So maybe we can just do this as we go. Put a little bit of paint in each one, and then we kind of know. So here you can grab some straight paint here and there. Okay, now we're over by the trees over here. And I'm trying to be very careful here. And I'm just taking my time. A sharp point on the brush is really important here. And we have some leaves over here, so we won't make this completely. Then I'll just add some damp brush to this. That looks much better. Add a little bit of then I rinse off the brush, dry off the brush quick, and just to get a little bit of different tonal value and variation. We have to do this really quick though. You can't, you either have to let it dry 100% or add in your little bit of extra wash pretty fast right after you've painted it, or it'll get pretty spotty and cauliflowers and funny looking stuff like that. I think that looks good. Then I just drop on a couple splashes of water just to, again, give it a little more variation, maybe a little bit of blotting, like that. I think that looks good. Now I'm going to get some burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, a little bit of burnt sienna, and let's add a little bit of decorative trim around this here. Again, that'll take a little pressure off the and maybe a little bit over here too. So now I'm just trying to maybe add some distractions from my I want to just make the focal point all around the whole painting, making different focal points, not just one. Let's kind of get our needlepoint brush here. We'll get some more of the burnt umber, maybe a little bit of yellow ochre, cerulean blue, burnt umber, a little bit of French ultramarine blue, and we'll dry off a little bit of the, and we'll do some, let's get a little more. And we're just going to do some branches. And we've had fun here. Have we not had fun? We've had a great time. We're struggling. Sometimes when we're doing our paintings, everyone struggles. Sometimes you run into an issue with your painting, and then you just try to try to make some workarounds and fix-ups here and there. If it doesn't work, it's no problem. We'll just take this, flip it over, and start a new painting. So never stress if your painting goes bad or goes wrong, and it doesn't, like, sometimes when a painting starts to have issues where you might have something that doesn't look great and then you try to repair it and it doesn't work, that's fine. You can just start a new one right away. I've created this video here, so I wanted to just keep going and kind of show you how I would try to work through some problems on this, because I did find that the shadows under the table weren't that great, but I think it looks okay. But I think that's a big help we have with the changing the awning, making that more exciting looking. And I think that does make it look better. And then we'll maybe just have a little bit of highlights with our, so we have some titanium white in our tube. We take a little bit of yellow ochre and we make some titanium white and yellow ochre. And we'll just do a few highlights maybe. We'll do a highlight on top of the head here. Maybe on top of the shoulders here. Top of the shoulders. That. And we can add maybe a couple like this. So we'll have some. And we also need a little bit of highlights over here, maybe like that. That looks good. And we said we wanted to I'll just go back in. I'll just try to get some more titanium white here, just for like that. There, a little more there. I'm just trying to get a few highlights going. There we go. And what else can we do here? That's looking pretty good. I think we have the highlights we have to do. Maybe just a little bit of the chair over here. That's burnt umber, yellow ochre, a little bit of cerulean blue. And we're just going to finish the chair over here. And we can add a little bit of darker shadows over here. So I'll try to make a little shadow for the arm here. A little bit of flesh tone here, yellow ochre and cadmium red. And we'll blend that in. And then we would let that dry. If you want to add a little bit of, maybe a little bit of eyes, like a little bit of a dark touch for the eyes here, maybe we'll let that dry for a few minutes and we can just finish up and do a little bit of eyes and maybe our sunglasses on our figure here. Other than that, I think it looks pretty good. A little bit of shadowing under here. And you can always do these scenes without figures. That's very, you could do this scene with no figures. I added the figures in here at the table. You could do figures walking in this scene, possibly a few figures, larger ones in the foreground here, walking towards the cafe, or a few figures maybe standing, or one figure maybe walking inside the door or inside. You could put a figure in the interior of this cafe maybe. So that's up to you. You can add different ideas. And again, if you run into a problem, don't sweat it too much. Try to come up with some creative solutions to work around something that might not go 100% right for you when you're doing your paintings. I hope you'll have a good takeaway from this, that if you do have an issue or two on a painting, you try to, again, work around it, do some creative ideas, step back, think of maybe something in the past you did in a painting and you corrected something a certain way. And then again, if it doesn't go right and it keeps, just snowballing and not going well, not a problem. Just don't worry about it. Turn the paper over and start a new painting or start a drawing, or just take a break for, a couple hours and maybe go back and just do some pencil sketching or whatever else. And, so don't let it get to you if you have any issues with your paintings and they don't go right. And I'm always trying new ideas to try to, repair things if something doesn't go good. And but this one, in the end here, I think it comes out okay. It turns out pretty good. We'll just peel off the tape here, and we'll also put this at the beginning of the video. So right at the beginning of the video, you'll see this finished painting. I'll probably do a little touch-up or two in between that time that I put it back onto the beginning of the painting. So you'll see the finishing touches. I'll do a few more things to it once it dries 100%. So it might look a little bit different, but for the most part, we're finished on this one. And I hope you enjoyed this. And hey, please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. The button down below on the right-hand side. If you subscribe, we're doing paintings just like this. Cafe scenes, cityscapes, figure painting, flowers, boat scenes. We do pretty much everything, still life. So let's have fun together. hit the subscribe button. Keep coming back. Put your comments below if you have questions. You know, this way we can work all together on things. And thank you so much for coming by each week and painting along with me. And we'll see you on the next video.